Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jane. So let's start our talk. Let me hear you from your own words. Who is
Sure.
Adrienne?
So I spent the first 50 years of my life in the corporate world. Just normal, Gene. And I worked in the corporate world for 30 years, very successfully selling computers. And then one day I had an enlightenment experience that woke me up to channel.
What was it?
So I was riding in my car and I heard a man's voice say very clearly, "You're done with everything that you've done up to this point in your life." And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Don't be taking away my work if you don't have something better. And it went silent. And then he repeated himself. "You're done with everything you've done up to this point in your life." And that was the beginning of it. I opened a channel. I continued to hear his voice. I didn't know anything about channeling because I was just a corporate girl, right? And so I didn't know that you're supposed to ask, "Hello, who is this talking to me?" Never occurred to me because when he would talk to me, it felt so much like love. So I never thought to ask. And he didn't tell me for almost 2 years who he was.
Till that time, did you have any interest in these kind of subjects?
Yes, I did. I had always been interested in it. From the time I was a tiny little child, all I ever wanted to be was a psychic. I spent my allowance on fortune telling stuff and crystal balls and crystals and things like that, to no success. Nothing ever happened until this one day. I was 51 years old when it happened.
That's the time you were about to know who you are, right?
Yeah, the Native Americans believe that one doesn't become a human being until they're 51. It's part of that Native American tradition.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. But
That's interesting. 51 years old, huh?
uh-huh. Yeah. So there we go.
That's what I'm thinking about myself, how did it start? Maybe I was 51, either. Maybe.
Yeah. Count back, check and see. You might be very surprised.
I will. That's interesting.
So the voice continued, and he began to give me this work. It's a body of work now that's called Inner Speak, or in Turkey, it's called Gene Adrienne's Clearing System, JAS.
Yes, Gene Adrienne's Clearing System.
Yeah. And it's Inner Speak throughout the rest of the world. And the reason why it's different in Turkey is that there was a woman in Turkey who trademarked the name Inner Speak because she was angry at me.
Oh.
So I can't use that name in Turkey, but I've trademarked Gene Adrienne's Clearing System, so she can't do it again.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. It's the Turkish culture is different. That's all I can say.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys deal with Nazar. That's something kind of unheard of.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's very interesting. So anyway, I received this body of work, and I had no idea what it was that I was receiving. It wasn't until the very end when I was told how to use it, what to do with it, and then a couple of years later, I was actually told that the voice that I was speaking to, he identified himself as Archangel Michael. And the rest is history. Now they communicate with me all the time. I mean, literally, I'm wide open to channel, and I receive information and contact almost daily. Yeah.
Do you receive unusual messages? Do you receive?
Yeah. So these DNA cards. Yeah, that's an example of unusual messages, because one day he said, "Today I want to talk to you about DNA." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And he said, "Well, at some point in the evolution of the human species, you guys had 144 strands of DNA." So he said, "So don't go crazy on me and start thinking conspiracy theories and you were dumbed down and things were stolen from you, etc. He said, because you lovingly, the human species lovingly gave DNA to another civilization that was going extinct.
Extinct. Okay.
Yeah. And he didn't tell me who. Later he did. But he said that this particular civilization had gone very deep into technology, and they had rendered themselves sterile, so they couldn't reproduce, so they were going away. But they were very capable of traveling intergalactically. And they searched all around all the universes until they found a place where there was a species that had enough genetic material that they could work with that to heal themselves.
I see.
And when they left, we had 2 strands of DNA, and we've been absolutely fine for millions of years.
Yes, yes.
You know, however, what Michael said was that attached to each of these strands of DNA was one of our gifts or abilities. And so we didn't realize when we were giving away our genetic material, we were also giving away our gifts.
What about shadow rings? Are those unseen, invisible DNA? Shadow string?
Well, so that's basically what the cards do, because there's no loss in the divine plan. Everything was brought into existence or was spoken into existence at once, bam. Yeah. And nothing has ever been taken away. Things move around, but they don't go away. And so the point was that if we were aware that we had more than 2 strands of DNA, we could ask that the other strands of DNA be brought back to us and be activated for us. That would be done at a shadow level or an etheric level.
Yes. Okay.
So he said, so your job is to draw 142 pictures, and each of those pictures will hold the energy of a latent strand of DNA. And so I started arguing with him again. I said, whoa, I don't draw. And he goes, well, I beg to differ, because I happen to know that you have not 1, but 2 packs of colored pencils you've never opened and a drawing pad.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, you got me. I do. You know, he said, I'll show you how to do it. And so I started drawing these pictures that he was showing me. And some days he would give me the image first. Some days he would give me the name.
Were you receiving these messages some special time of the day or night?
No, random. It was random.
Okay, random.
Yeah. But once I started, listening and paying attention, I set aside time. And I would sit, and I had a piece of drawing paper. I divided it into 6 squares, and I would draw what he was showing me into one of the 6 squares.
I see.
And then I would scan that piece of paper and send it to a friend of mine who did Adobe Photoshop. And she would make it into the JPEG. So that's how it started. It started as hand drawn. And I had no idea that I could draw. Or I'd never done anything like that in my life.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And when that part opened, not only was I open to channel, but I became open to art. There's none of my paintings are in this particular room. However, my whole house is filled with the paintings that I do. I can't stop painting.
You do it randomly. You don't even think about it.
Well, yeah, I sometimes I take classes, but I spend my spare time painting or writing books or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I do.
When you do those drawings, you get those messages. How did you write your books? Did you get those messages as well?
Yes, sort of. The first book that I wrote was my life story. I just felt compelled. I had to get that out because I had a pretty tumultuous growing up. So I had to get that out of me. So that was my first book. The second book that I wrote absolutely was channeled. It was a process. I had, I guess, what you might call a nervous breakdown. As I was going through all of this growth, I was losing track of who I really was. I didn't know who I was anymore. It was happening so fast. Yeah. And one day I just fell apart. I was sitting in the parking lot of the grocery store and I couldn't stop crying. And it went on and on and on. And I didn't know, I wasn't sad. I mean, I had a good life. There was no reason for me to be crying, except for I couldn't stop. And finally, it occurred to me to call out for help. And I just, I asked my guides and angels to please help me because I need to get my act together, And immediately that peace that passes all understanding just washed over me. And I began to realize that I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was afraid. And it was because I didn't know who I was anymore. And if I didn't know who I was anymore, how could I expect my husband, my kids, anybody to know who I was? And it was really scary. So I made a commitment to myself in that grocery store parking lot that I would journal my process of digging myself out of this fear hole. And so I started keeping track of everything that I did, thought, felt, and I did it in a journal. And I made a commitment to use that to help others. So I called a local metaphysical bookstore in Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta at the time. And I made a commitment 3 months out. I said, I want to teach a class. What's your availability of space in 3 months? And they gave me a date. So I knew I had a date that I had to have this finished by. And I just went with it. I allowed spirit to guide me, and I worked on myself every day using inner speak mostly. Then I started like transcribing those notes onto my computer. And I was like, whoa, I don't remember writing this. Where did this is good. Where did this come from?
This happened to me as well. Yeah.
Okay. So you understand.
Same experiences.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was my second book. It was called Reframe Your World. And then the next couple of books were, again, they were sort of pop psychology, self-help things to get my information out to others to help them on their path. That was really my goal. And then, somewhere along the way, Michael told me to make a deck of cards for the inner speak process. He said, people, they won't read your books. They won't come to your classes because they won't understand what you're teaching. But if you'll make a deck of cards, people will play with cards. And he showed me what to put where. And so I created the inner speak cards and put them out there. And then, I don't know, it was a couple of years later that the DNA cards came in. And then the most recent book that I wrote was actually a fiction book. It was my first foray into fiction because I had never, everything else was nonfiction. And that came about because I had been working to create a relationship in my life. After I got divorced, I was alone and I couldn't seem to find anybody that was of the same ilk as me to date. It just, I was better off sitting at home, on my couch, contemplating my belly button than going out with people who didn't understand who I was. So I decided to do conscious creation. So I began to make a list of what I wanted to find because that's what everybody says you need to do, right? And so I did that. And I don't know, somehow or another, I thought, well, if I make this if I put a lot of emotion into this, it's going to happen better. So why not write a story about it? So I wrote this story. And in that book, the book is called Conjunctio, which is the alchemical marriage from alchemy. At first I gave some background on myself. So the first third of that book is stuff that actually happened to me, weird stuff, the super metaphysical stuff, experiences that I'd had. And then it starts into the story. And the story is that a man buys the house next door. And, and then we meet at the mailbox and we develop a relationship and it goes on and on and on, up to the point that, no, I'm not going to spoil it. Okay. But let's just say that apparently a lot of people thought that it was real. And they kept sending me messages. Wait a minute, how come you never posted pictures of you and Samuel and your trip to Santorini on Facebook? I was like, did you not read where it says this book is fiction, except for the first third of it? and I was too, because it was like I was living it. I still, every day, I fully expect Samuel to walk into my front door. You know, he hasn't yet, but who knows, maybe today.
Intuition.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how it started.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very interesting stories you're telling us. So can you give me the secrets of 144? What's the secret for 144?
Okay, I'm not sure that I even know the secret, but I know that 144 is one of the most common numbers in sacred geometry.
Okay.
12 times 12.
12 times 12. Yeah, that's right.
And 12 is one of there's some numbers in sacred geometry that are extremely important, but I don't really know why. I just know that they are.
I see. Because I always, hear about that 144. That's why I wonder. There is something about 144, but just like you say, I don't know either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when Michael started giving me the InnerSpeak process, he said it's going to be 144 files of information. And that was, I guess, maybe my first exposure to it. And the second would have been the DNA cards. And what he told me was that this process is based on sacred geometry.
Yeah. Another thing I heard, maybe it was just the intuition, 144,000 people, when they get awakened, it's gonna...
We all do.
Yes.
It's the tipping point.
Something like that. Yeah, it's something like inner, maybe inner speak. Something is speaking to me. That's why I asked you, maybe you were agree, about...
So more than that, I believe that there are 144,000 people who are in incarnation right now to help that happen.
That's right. It's interesting.
Or maybe it's 144. I don't know.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
No. But, I do believe that it's my mission and, to help, and probably yours too, or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes, that's right. Same things, same experiences I passed through, same thing. I was doing business.
Hello?
Something happened. I tried another something. There was something, trying to tell me that, hey, you are doing wrong. You have to be on this side. So I started just like you, that's interesting. Same experiences happening. Do you do coaching sessions right now, or still?
I do. That's all I do. I mean, I'm retired from the corporate world, so I work with probably 4 to 5 people a day in private coaching. English speaking only. I mean, I have had some Turkish people come to me to want private sessions, and I'm always happy to do that, especially if they speak English, or if they can come with a translator, because I don't.
Yes, that's right.
I've been trying to learn Turkish now for 3 years. I've done every lesson that Duolingo has, and
but it's not too easy.
No, and my knowledge is rudimentary at best.
That's right. So I wonder, what is to be a spiritual person? Sometimes, people say, hey, you're so spiritual. What do you think a spiritual person shows? How do you understand a person spiritual or so much into this world,
So, to me, the definition of a spiritual person is someone who is working on their spirit to help raise it to a higher vibration. And I truly believe that's the only reason why we're here. We incarnate into these human bodies so
Yes,
that we can master lessons that can only be mastered in the physical. We
I see.
can't do it when we're on the other side,
That's right. That's right.
you
So
know?
it's so much like a spiritual person loves to give, right? Giving is the, I think, number one aim, probably.
Mm-hmm.
A non-spiritual person focus on taking, you know.
Yeah, totally, totally. But the thing is, there's a gotcha with that giving thing.
Mhm.
I think that many of us, as we're awakening, we're taught to believe that we're supposed to put everybody else first and
Yeah,
give away everything that we have, which
yeah.
is completely backwards. When you fly on an airplane, they don't tell you to give that mask to the person next to you first. They say,
Yes.
put it on yourself first and then take care of the
Yeah.
guy next to you.
Yeah.
So we're really supposed to grow our own gifts and then model that for other people rather than giving them away,
That's right.
giving our power away. Mostly we give our power away.
Yes, yes. There is a little, just like you said, there's a sensitive line in between these,
Totally.
yeah.
To-
Sometimes people confuse, taking first means, ego, but it's not. It's
no,
you have to be on your feet first and then help.
exactly.
Otherwise, how are you going to help? That's
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And finally, what would you say about the consciousness of current humanity? Do we still have hope?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Because I think that there's so much light coming onto planet Earth right now that there's no way that we could not grow. If you're not prepared for it and open to it and grounded, sometimes it makes you sick
Yeah.
or uncomfortable or whatever. And there are a lot of people who are, quote, not those spiritual people, who, it just flies by them. And
Yeah.
that's okay. They have a really good job description. Their job description is to hold planet
Yes.
Earth in place.
Yeah.
A stone is a really good job description. It's a good thing, and so there's some people that have to be the stones. And then there's some of us that can rise higher than that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I hope most people gets into this. Not just everything is about what we see, what we hear. It's beyond that. It's you can only feel it. You don't use your consciousness.
Oh
You
yeah, it
feel
is
it.
so much bigger than we
Yes,
can
but most
possibly
people
imagine.
don't trust their feelings
Right.
still.
And
Yeah.
that's because of fear.
Yes,
You
because
know,
of fear. That's right.
that's what gets in the way all the time. But the concept of God is so much bigger than we can possibly imagine. The concept of truth, the same, because every time we try to define truth or God or love or any of those things, we put it inside a box. And
Yes,
as soon as you do that, you'll see evidence of it outside your box. And you
that's
have to expand your thinking. And that's kind of how it happens.
humanity. Human mind always loves to put borders around everything. huh?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so they can control it. Everything has to be bordered. So
Well,
they,
it's all about safety.
yes, safety. It's maybe comfort zone, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
comfort zone.
Safety. I mean, the soul, in my opinion, the soul is safe. It feels safe. It doesn't really have issues around that. But the body, which also has a soul, is all about safety. Body wants to be safe.
Yes,
And so
that's
all these issues around fear and safety are primarily issues of the body deva, the soul of the body.
soul of the body. Body loves to, see things just the way it is. It doesn't like unknown. Everything has to be known.
Totally. Because the body operates at the level of about a 4-year-old child. It's, another synonym is the inner child.
That's right.
And little children don't want change. They want everything to be ordered, specific, and safe.
That's right. Our conscious mind controls all neighbor, around us. 5%. That's right.
Mhm.
Percent control. That's all. But people thinks it's 100% control of it.
Right.
Nothing. Subconscious mind. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about general how we can help people trying to get out this reality and feel it more? How can we help them?
So my suggestion is we help others best by being what we want them to be and modeling that for them, because people can't hear what you say.
Yes, that's right.
But actions speak louder than words. So if you
have to show it, right?
If you act in love and you act from that higher consciousness place, from your inner knowing, then people will go, oh, well, that's working for him.
That's right.
And maybe I should try that.
Yes.
That's the way to do it, rather than trying to force feed.
It's a very effective message. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's very nice talking to you, Jean.
You as well. It's nice to meet a fellow traveler on this path to ascension.
That's marvelous to hear from you. Thank you very much for spending your time with us.
You're very welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Görüşürüz.
Görüşürüz.